Normalcy has been restored in Virat Kohli's life, and he returns to a venue that he loves so much, a country that he loves so much, a team that he loves playing against and hitting hundreds against. 700 for Virat Kohli against Australia. In Australia, India now well and truly in the driver's seat after having been bundled out for 150. That's where it is. It's been a topsy-turvy test match. Australia all out for 104. India piling on the agony, 487. Of course, propelled by Yashasvi, Jaiswal's magnificent 161. Eighth and line, just a couple of wickets for Australia in return, losing 3 quick wickets at the end of day 3. And now they find themselves in a spot of bother, to say the least. The great Adam Gilchrist joins us on Cricbuzz Chatter. Gilly, you were on broadcast and none of us saw this coming. India in a position where they are right now after having been all out for 150 in the first innings.
Yeah, g'day Manish. Great to see you and be chatting with you about another dramatic day's cricket. It was just fascinating to see it unfold. And you're right, it seems a long, long time ago that India were bundled out for 150. So for them to turn it around under the leadership of Jaiswal, the decision to bat first was extraordinary. Well, not extraordinary. No, let me take that back. It was bold, I think, given the conditions, and it looked to have backfired. But he's just led. He's led with the captaincy, and then with ball in hand, and then that's enabled his team to claw their way back. But they turned up today in a position of dominance, and they have ground Australia into the dirt. Tomorrow, at some stage, I expect they'll get the job done.
For all those fans wondering and questioning where is the great Harsha Bhogle, well, he is busy talking IPL auction with Gaurav Kapoor and Joy Bhattacharya. And so you're going to have to contend with the great Gilly, who is very much there, right in the middle of it. And you got a chance to speak to Virat Kohli for a few seconds. Right after that 100, you sort of sensed the vibe in Virat Kohli's body language as well. What was your assessment of the zone he was in after he hit that 100?
Yeah, the vibe or the emotion or the feeling, you're spot on. It was, I think his vibe early was determined. He knew the platform that had been laid by his openers, opening partnership of 201. Patakal, he certainly featured in a nice little partnership just to make sure that there wasn't back-to-back wickets. So that by the time Virat came in, he was determined and he took his time. He had that steely resolve in his eyes. He looked a little bit more settled, I think, than he has done. Certainly in the first innings here, it looked like he was trying to enforce himself a bit too much. Some of the innings against New Zealand maybe just looked a bit too on edge and too eager to dominate compared to what he normally does. He's always had a positive intent, but he settled today. And then as the innings grew, the crowd at that Perth stadium, only 26,000, which is a decent enough size crowd for Perth. So many Indian supporters. They were on the journey, as they always are with Virat Kohli, and you could feel the emotion around the ground as he got closer and closer. I think the manner with which he scored the 100, he went from 70. He was at 70 when Nitish Kumar Reddy decided to pull the trigger, and they both started to go. Virat flicked, just a flick of the wrist off Nathan Lyon, hit him back over his head for 6. And it was like, oh, here we go. Not only is 100 on, but there might be a declaration. So the excitement around the ground was palpable. So that's where it was wonderful to talk to Virat, in the immediacy and the aftermath of scoring that 100, his reaction, turning to his wife and the families that are up in the corporate box there, blowing a kiss to them. It was magical. It really was. I'm an Australian cricketer. I love Australian cricket teams winning, not being on the back foot, but you've got to acknowledge greatness when you see it. And there was a lot of emotion and a great deal of greatness, if that's the term, because it was Virat Kohli.
Virat Kohli is a tough character, and we all know that he gives it as good as he gets. And that's something that Australia as a country likes about Virat Kohli, because he's always up for a challenge. Now, does this set up the series beautifully? It gets Virat into the zone. Australia will be a lot more alert as well when they take him on. How does this innings change the complexion of the series?
Oh, look, I suspect, we'll wait and see. We'll wait till the end of the series to know exactly where the turning points were or the key moments. But I think at this point in time, it's probably the innings of Yashasvi Jaiswal that is the major event. It was the platform that allowed Virat to come in and beautifully supported by KL. But yeah, it's an important innings for Virat. I think you could tell in the way a sense of relief, if you like. If you play long enough at this level, you're going to have dips. Even, Sachin found periods of time, particularly towards the back end of your career, Ricky Ponting, you're going to have dips if you're there long enough. But the champion players can claw their way back and find a way. And it just shows us that there's nowhere near, is it time up for Virat Kohli? It was a matter of time till he, counterpunched, and he did it in a venue that he's had success before and in a country where he's had a lot of success. So it sets it up beautifully for him. And it's part of it. It was a contribution to setting up the game here for India beautifully.
The great Sachin Tendulkar, 6 Test hundreds in Australia versus Australia. The great Virat Kohli, 7 Test hundreds versus Australia in Australia. This is a special love affair, isn't it?
It is. And there's some beautiful batting tracks coming up. So Sunil Gavaskar might be under pressure very, very soon if Virat gets a taste for it, which he so often has done here in Australia.
Now, I believe the Australian newspapers were super excited about this 22-year-old who's had a stellar year in Test cricket. He's piled on 1,000+ runs already. I'm not sure of the exact number at this stage. Yashasvi Jaiswal, a duck in the first innings, and how quickly he's thought about his game. What did you make of his approach, his mentality in this 161? He was all set for a double, just got out to a ball that should have gone for 4. But Yashasvi Jaiswal's innings for you, how does that augur for himself and the team?
Yeah, I think your point about mentality or mindset, that's probably the greatest quality that I saw in amongst some extraordinary skill, a real touch of class. The Indian audience knows, and the IPL audience, which is much broader than just a base in India, it's a globally watched contest. Everyone knows his ability with the white ball and how flamboyant he can be. And even in Test cricket, he scored 50s off 40 balls. But his application was extraordinary. His learnings from the first innings and his desire just to do the job for the team. Every landmark moment, 50, 100, 150, he turned to the team. He had the fist clenched, and you could see him signalling to them that it was all about a bigger picture and not just him. So wonderful to watch. We've loved in our broadcast, which does go out to a lot of the world, but particularly focused here in Australia, telling the Australian audience his story, of which you all know so well, and what an amazing story it is for us to be able to try and let the audience here know about his journey. That's been really fun to do. And then when it's supported with a performance like that, it's the stuff of movies.
Yes, and to do well in Sena countries, to do well in Australia does earn him many more points, and his stock really rises in that cricket stock exchange. Now, Gilly, you've got 3 scores of 150 plus. This man has played a total of 15 Test matches, including this one, has 400s, 2 of which are double, and the other 2 are 171 and 161. What does that tell you? This terrific, this ridiculous conversion rate. What does that tell you about how this young man looks at this sport and his role? Take a look at that. Graeme Smith and Yashasvi Jaiswal, 100 to 150. It's a special club. It takes special ability, doesn't it?
Oh, it sure does. To be so young in age, but mature in mind and mindset, that's an extraordinary talent. Yeah, Graeme Smith, he was a fierce competitor to play against. You knew you were up for a contest. So, the way Jaiswal's turned and put the aggression and the blowtorch back on the Australians, be it with weight of runs or just a couple of nice little engagements, a little verbal here and there. Australia know they've got a real challenge now against this guy, and it just shows a wonderful hunger for runs. And sets it up nicely for India, what we think will be for long into the future.
A couple of players playing the support role. Washington Sundar spent a fair bit of time with Virat Kohli, steadied the ship in a sense where the new ball was taken and didn't allow a collapse to happen. Nitish Kumar Reddy, on the other hand, was allowed the license to thrill. What did you make of those 2 knocks?
Yeah, they lost, I think it was 3 for 9. And that could have, whilst they were still in a commanding position, if that continued on and there was a real collapse, just maybe, you never know, Australia might have gained some momentum and confidence, and they might have been none for 100 overnight or something like that. But they shut the door on it. Washington Sundar was excellent. He just took his time. He just looks like a complete cricketer, all aspects. He's not the number one ranked in any of the components of his game in the world, but he's really, really strong in all of them. So that provides a wonderful package. And I think that's obviously lent itself to him being selected in this team. He will come into play if the damage isn't completely done too early, but he may come into play having observed what Nathan Lyon was doing, bowling from the Justin Langer stand end into a nice footmark. So his off spinners could come into contention, and Nitish Kumar Reddy was fascinating just to see him stride out of the crease. It was like an IPL match at moments there where he has played some flamboyant innings. I don't think the Australian players would have seen him do that, but the way he just flexed his muscles, that was like an ultimate flex. We are on top of you, and I am just going to cash in here, and I'm going to help the master, the champion, get to 100 and be out there in a unique moment.
Nitish Kumar Reddy is going to take a piece of Perth with him when he comes back to India, because it was his dream to someday play with his hero Virat Kohli, and to do so in Australia, in Perth, to see the master scoring 100, to be there alongside him, to see him celebrate, to hug him, must be a very, very special feeling for that man. There's something about him that tells you that he's got the guts and the valor to compete and to do well at the highest level.
Yeah, I love the aggression, controlled aggression. And it looks like a steely result. He's not going to back away from a contest, you sense. And that's a great starting platform at Test cricket. And if he can continue to develop and learn his game, but he probably seems to know his game extremely well already. So he did not look intimidated. He looks every inch a Test cricketer.
Right, now let's take a stock of the Australian bowling. 7 bowlers used. Marnus Labuschagne also bowled a bit of leg spin. They tried Travis Head as well. Nathan Lyon bowled as many as 39 overs. Toiled really hard for only 2 wickets. There's 1 each for Starc, Hazelwood, Cummins, Marsh. Pat Cummins, did he try everything he could, or was there a trick he missed? Could they have tried to bowl a few more bouncers? What did he make of it?
Oh, look, I think those numbers aren't overly impressive, are they? They're hard toil numbers where you've really been put to the sword at certain times, more so from an endurance point of view. I think that's a huge value add for India, the fact that they've kept Australia out there in the field for such a long period of time. So Nathan Lyon I thought he was excellent. I think he could easily have had a few more. So they didn't completely throw the towel in Australia. I don't think you're ever going to see that of an Australian team, but I think they were just outclassed by some batting that had really summed up the conditions. And in doing so, in just batting so long, not only did it wear the Australians down and put miles on their legs, it allowed the pitch to start to come into play more and more with these cracks. A warmer day today, the cracks opened up, and whilst they weren't, demons or venomous, just enough to get inside the batter's mind. And then we saw what decision-making errors that the Australians had a little bit later on in the day.
Josh Hazelwood, very much McGrath-like in his approach, in his bowling action, bowled 21 overs, gave away just 1.3 an over. It can happen, right, in Test cricket where you bowl really well, but somehow you won't find the edge.
Yeah, and you're spot on. And he got the 4 wickets in the first innings, and he's always going to be so consistent. The other point about that bowling line up there, and it's a glaring omission through injury, is Cam Green. I think you slot Cam Green in there, he probably would have shouldered at least 20 of those overs, maybe more. And he enjoys bowling in these type of conditions as well. So, but he's not there. So you've got to make amends. You've got to make the most of who's available. And they just couldn't quite get it done in that second innings with ball in hand.
Right. Now, Australia were on the field for about 4 sessions and a bit more. They had to bowl about 135 overs. Did the scar of that or the tiredness of that, was that evident in the way they batted in the second innings? 3 down already. Were they mentally not there? Did you see a certain sense of reluctance to have to go out and bat?
Oh, yeah, very reluctant to come out there with 24 minutes on the clock. I think they looked scrambled. They looked really, really sort of scattered in their thinking towards the back end of the fielding innings. Again, I'm not saying they gave up or the intent wasn't there, but it looked like the decision making and the choices they were going with just wasn't quite right. And then, Bumrah bowls a beautiful first 3 deliveries to Nathan McSweeney, all away, and then brings one back, wraps him on the pad. And then Pat Cummins, I admire his courage and his desire to be the leader, but to go out to him, having never carried out the night watchman role before, having bowled 25 overs, having captained the team and had to have made so many decisions already that day in 35-degree heat, it was always felt like it was going to be a stretch too far for Pat, and he went out there. And so I'm not sure about that decision. And then you look at Marnus Labuschagne, to not play a shot, to not offer a shot where balls have started to keep low, even though it's normally typically a bouncy wicket. Again, it looked like a scrambled mind from Marnus, and then he used a review, and it turns out it was plumb in front. So a costly end to a day that Australia would rather forget.
The innings changeover was hardly any time. Not too sure if Pat Cummins would have had enough time to speak to the team or the openers, but generally speaking, in Australia, culturally speaking, would there be too much talk by the coach, the players, or would there just be complete silence? People are left to themselves and, just go and do your job as professionals.
Yeah, in the innings break, there would have been no team speeches or getting everyone together for anyone to say. It was very, very simple. You've got a job to do as openers to try and get out there and survive and get through. Nathan McSweeney would have been frightfully nervous. It's his test debut. He got some runs, a few runs at least in the first innings, but to go out and deal with Bumrah in those conditions, in those circumstances, being exhausted, he would be exhausted mentally anyway, because that's what happens in your debut. Everything happens so quick. There's so much mental energy drained out of your body for every minute of the day, really. Even when you're at home in the hotel or out to dinner, you're still buzzing that you're there. Thinking about it constantly. It takes time when you're exposed at the top level to learn how to deal with that. So no fault of his, but he was just beaten by world-class bowling. So no, the Australians tomorrow is where they need to stop and have a think and a chat and try to get some sort of positivity. Try and survive the first little phase and see if they can build on that.
Right. Australia now having to survive for 6 sessions. They are feeling the heat, and I've got a slightly tricky question for Adam Gilchrist in the hotspot. Now, from getting India out for 150, at the end of day 3, they find themselves staring at a horrendous defeat. Is the pressure piling on Captain Pat Cummins?
Oh, no, I don't think there's any undue pressure on Pat. I think he bowled well enough. I don't think there's any significant sort of huge costly errors in his decision-making with the captaincy. I think there were some little scrambled decisions, as I said, but not ones where you go, hang on a minute, that really needs to have a microscope put on it and we need to have a chat about it. Pat's a wonderful leader. I admire his courage trying to go out there and do that job as night watchman. But no, he's not under any real pressure. There'll be a big focus if they are to lose this game, which it looks in all likelihood they will. There'll be a lot of talk about it, a lot of focus about where it went wrong and how they can rectify it. But they're a fantastic cricket team. They're a team that's looking like they're out of confidence or they're not certain about where they're at. And it's their first test match for about 8 or 9 months, I think. So we'll just see how the dust settles, where the cards fall at the end, and then they'll rebuild again heading into Adelaide, and they'll believe that they can bounce back.
India on top at the end of day 3. What's likely to happen on day 4? Let's find out in Fast Forward. Now, Australia staring at a mountain. They've lost McSweeney. They've lost Labuschagne. There's Steve Smith yet to come. There's Travis Head as well. Mitchell Marsh can bat a bit. Alex Carey as well. 6 sessions to survive. 520 odd to score to win. It's never happened in the history of Test cricket. How do you foresee the first 2 sessions of day 4 from an Australian point of view?
Australia need to survive the first hour. That'll be, it's Bumrah and Siraj with a pretty much a brand new ball, only 5 or 6 overs old, if that. And there you go, 4.5 overs old nearly. So that's the first mission, first half an hour probably. Break it down into small allotments. Make sure that you're open to observing what's gone before you. So that helps your decision making. That's what India did so well in their second innings. So it's small increments that Australia need to break it down. If they can get to lunch unscathed, they'll start to believe that there's real hope here. But the challenge for them is going to be clearing their mind, not forecasting, knowing that you've got 6 sessions to survive, or 500 runs, which is a mountain to climb at small increments.
Over the years, since our childhood, the one thing we've learned about Australia is never count them out. No matter how much the odds are stacked against Australia, they're always in the game to win it. Now, let's find out what history tells you about these chases. Such a score has never been chased in history. Successful chases in Test cricket in Australia. It was South Africa, Graeme Smith, South Africa, back in 2008, who scored 414. Australia need to score 100 and a bit more than 414. The question for you, though, Gilly, is: are you going to be going to the Optus Stadium in Perth on Tuesday or not?
I suspect not. I do not think we will be there at the ground. I suspect possibly in between lunch and tea, session 2, day 4 is where I think the game might come to a crashing halt. But we'll have to wait and see. Funnier things in cricket have happened. You never know.
Well, the writing is on the wall. Unless Australia can pull off the unthinkable, Bumrah, Siraj and Harshit Rana will have their tails up. They've got 500 plus runs in their bag to bowl at Australia with. It is going to be a fun first session on day 4. That's where it all stands. Australia 12-4-3. They've lost their captain Pat Cummins, Nathan McSweeney and Marnus Labuschagne. They still need 522 to win. Gilly, as always, it's been a pleasure. Good to see you on commentary as well. And we'll see you again tomorrow on Cricbuzz Chatter. Bye for now.